Today on Locked On Canadiens, we check in on the NHL playoffs, and then we have player grades for Josh Anderson and Arber Xhekaj.
Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 830 of Locked On Canadiens. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. My name is Laura Saab, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by Scott Matlove, Habs Eyes on the Prize. Scott, the playoffs are interesting and exciting. We are kicking off our player reviews. We did the goaltenders on the last episode, and now we're just going to be alternating forwards and defensemen as for the next few episodes, essentially. How are you doing today on this fine Monday evening?
Can't complain too much. And the player review season is always fun, and especially in a year where you used like a million different players and a million different lineups at a given time. There's so much to actually look back on. And I know this season was bad in, quite frankly, a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons, but there's plenty of good in there, which is why the two players that we picked for today's show are so important, because they were part of that silver lining here. But I know before we get into that, the playoffs have been perhaps a little bit wilder and more exciting than I was anticipating or expecting coming into this.
So earlier today, when you said you wanted to talk about the playoffs, I kept thinking, how best do we use our time on this episode to jinx the Toronto Maple Leafs? And I am ready and prepared to say that they're going to get past this first round and they're going to win the Stanley Cup. That is what I'm about to say right now. I can't think of any other way to do it.
Tonight's game has, as we're recording this, they're about to take the ice against Tampa Bay. Like, they are about to play game 4. Toronto should not have won game 3 for a lot of different reasons. And I think that this is going to level out here, mostly because Tampa won in a game where I think they might have gotten, or Toronto won the game where they might have actually gotten some benefit of the doubt, which have they probably earned that? Maybe. And then after the game, Sheldon Keefe, despite winning a game he had no business winning, went on to say the refs are being manipulated. So one of two things is going to happen tonight. Toronto's going to play pristinely and win, a 5-3 kind of game, or Tampa's just going to have a parade to the power play here, which admittedly will be very funny to me, because then we get another whole thing of ref complaining. Across all the series, I want to make one thing very clear here. The refs do not hate your team. The refs just suck at their jobs. This applies for the Oilers series. This applies for the Vegas series and the Toronto series and the blah, blah, blah. They don't.
Every Habs game?
No, they actually hate the Habs. I'm going to be insistent upon that fact. They don't hate your team. They just suck at their jobs across the board. And until there's an actual overhaul, guess what? You're going to have to deal with it. So
here's my question, is that they suck, right? But they probably presumably have some sort of pride or ego. So how do you think they're going to feel about them constantly being criticized by the Toronto Maple Leafs or their fans or, or Sheldon Keefe or Kyle Dubas or a player or whatever? Like, how do you think they're going to react to that? Like, I don't see that going very well for Toronto.
No, it probably won't, because officials don't like being shown up or being tattled on or whatever we want to call it here. And it's a shame that we're talking about officiating in this way so much, because that's not what it should be about right now. There are so many other important games, and we're talking about officiating. And that's... I don't know what's going on with my computer today, so that's fun. The biggest thing with this is
For those of you who can't see us on the YouTube, Scott's video keeps going off by itself. Like it just keeps turning itself off. Is Maple around? Is she
No,
messing around
she's
with
on
the
the couch.
computer?
Like my microphone input keeps changing, which is annoying, which is why I'm looking to buy an arm so I can get away with this cord sitting by me here. My point with this whole thing being it's a shame that officiating is taking the story when we've seen games like Dallas versus Minnesota has been way more fun than a game involving either of those teams has any right to be. Devils Rangers has been every series has had something for everyone except for maybe the Islanders and Carolina, which is the only like non-surprise. Florida's just kind of rolled over and died. Minnesota and Dallas have been fun. Colorado and Seattle, and I'm kind of sad I haven't been able to stay up for all of these games because they seem like they've been a lot of fun on both sides of the puck. So the first round has exceeded my expectations in terms of fun. It will not all the way exceed my expectations until, Toronto has lost inside 7 games.
You know what? I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, what are we going to do with ourselves as a society if Toronto gets past the first round? I truly have no idea.
Delete Twitter accounts.
Also get rid of my cable, get rid of my internet, get rid of just not be able to communicate with the world.
Do you want to hear about how Toronto did the bare minimum for the next 6 months? Because guess what?
It's going to be years. It's going to be years. We're going to have to listen to it for years.
I was thinking about this at work today instead of doing my job. And if my boss would listen to this, I was doing my job perfectly today. Every team except for 2 in the Atlantic Division has won at least a round since the last lockout. The 2 teams that have not are the Buffalo Sabres and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't want to change that fact right now because I think the Sabres might win a round next year, and it will be the absolute funniest thing if they do it before Toronto does.
That's what I want now.
I mean, I know we were going to talk about the whole playoff thing, but this is still the storyline. Can Toronto actually do it? Because if they go up 3-1 tonight, okay, we've learned 3-1 against an inferior opponent doesn't mean anything when you're the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Why, Scott? Scott, why? Can you tell me why?
So in 2021, it all started when Alex Galchenyuk decided to pass it to Cole Caulfield, and the rest is history, so they say. We have a lot of fun episodes from that time frame, and I highly recommend you go back and watch them. Before I guess we move on to player reviews, Laura, I've already said that Minnesota and Dallas has been the one that like I am blocking off time to actually watch now, and I'm surprised by that. Is there a series that you're watching because it's good, not hate watching because it's Toronto?
I gotta say I'm hate watching quite a few of them. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm hate watching the Rangers. I'm hate watching the Devils. I'm hate watching the Boston Bruins. I don't hate the Florida Panthers, but I want them to lose because of the draft pick. I'm hating obviously Toronto. I hate watching Tampa. But you know what's been really interesting is the Los Angeles Kings and the Edmonton Oilers have been a surprising series and not a surprising series. I think we kind of expected that Edmonton would win, but I also thought that, I think earlier we both said that the possibility for an upset was there, right? So I'm watching that and it's pretty good. I, like you, want to stay up for the Seattle and Colorado games just because we love the people on both sides and the games have been fun. But who would have thought that the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild are the most fun, exciting, insane series in the first round? Because it would not have been me.
It's absolutely beyond what I would have possibly guessed for this. And I am, gotta say, big fan of more chaotic series without as much dumb stuff happening in them.
I will say one thing, though. If we were to do Minnesota Wild player or made-up guy, I think we could also do that with the Dallas Stars as well. For a lot of them. Obviously not some of the big names like Ottinger and Pavelski and all of that. But like there's a bunch of guys on Dallas. There's a bunch of guys on Minnesota where you can play the game real hockey player or made-up guy. And we're not going to make the next guy up. We're going to talk about Josh Anderson. And later on, we're going to talk about Arber Xhekaj. We're going to talk about their seasons and what we can expect if they both, we expect one. What can we expect if they both come back next season? And that's all coming up in just one moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could just handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Do you hate waiting? Indeed's US data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. You need to hire? You need Indeed. And going from Indeed to Andy, Josh Anderson, as a lot of the fan bases call him, or a lot of the fan base calls him. I don't know why they call him Andy. I think they just call him Handsome.
Because they have no creativity for nicknames.
This is true. So Josh Anderson, I think that obviously if you compare season over season, it feels like he took a step down, even though it felt to me as though he was trying harder this season. Does that make sense? I feel like he was trying and not getting it to connect, not getting it to hit.
Josh Anderson had a tale of two seasons here, and he played 69 games, which was nice, again.
We should have been doing this review on April 20th.
We probably should have. The back half of the season, though, after the January break, and with the A on his sweater, because Joel Edmondson and David Savard were alternating on in and out of the lineup with injuries, I think we saw the best version of Josh Anderson. We've seen someone who is involved in the game here. He put up 21 goals and 11 assists on the season, and Josh Anderson is not going to be a playmaker. We know that for a fact. Josh Anderson is made to be a scorer, and he was playing very good hockey, and then he had that freak injury at whatever the hell the end of that game was. I can't remember which one it was, but he was having such a good season, and he ended up with a high ankle sprain getting checked into the net there on an empty net chance, I'm pretty sure. It's an annoying way to end a season where Anderson, playing under the pressure of trade rumors just all season, which he seemed a little bit short with in his postseason press conference, which I'd probably be too if everyone kept trying to trade me for a little bit. And I'm wondering if he's found that stride and what the key to his game is there, because he was explosive. He was scoring goals. He was scoring on deflections and things around the net. I know that we keep talking about, are we finally going to get to see the full Josh Anderson here? He's 28 years old. Is this 20 goal, maybe 15 assist guy like his peak? And I'm really just 100% not sure, but I know this is that the Canadiens lack someone in the lineup at this moment who does what Josh Anderson does on a regular basis. And I think as upsetting as the season was, he was pacing for career highs in points and goals and everything else. Injuries took a chunk of that away, and there's nothing you can do about that. A story that will happen many times in these player reviews.
I agree. And that's something that we kind of have to factor in, because we do want to talk on tomorrow's episode. We're going to talk about Caden Gooley, for example. And that was obviously an injury shortened season. I think one of the things that I do want to talk about Anderson is that he did try over the course of the season. You could tell there were little plays that he was making. He was trying to get a little bit more cerebral to match up with his line mates or to match up with his desired line mates. And it's like you said, there aren't very many players on in the NHL that are that large that can skate that fast and have that kind of shot. He does get a lot of flack for being a little bit one-dimensional, but I like to think that this season he tried to add dimensions to his game. I think that's what I really appreciated. And I saw him keep pace in such a way that you would expect at this point for him to start slowing down, right? He's not old, but he's not exactly young anymore. Now it's like it's the time where he's like turning the corner and becoming a little bit slower, a little bit more I hate to say injury prone, but like this is like he's following the expected trajectory. But that doesn't mean that he's done. Like he's got still a lot of like he's still within his prime. He's got a lot of gas left, even though he plays a very physical game. And that was something that I found impressive is that, since he's been in Montreal, since he joined the team, I think that he's consistently brought the body and he's been able to maintain that speed. It's just that we wanted him to add other, not skill, you can't add new skills, but we wanted him to kind of focus on a little bit more thinking, a little bit more seeing ahead of the play, a little bit more keeping up with some of the smarter guys on this team. And I really, really thought that he did that. And then he got injured.
I think the thing with Anderson, and I talked about this on Game Over with Andrew Berkshire, he lacks a certain thing in terms of a cycling style game, which makes him an ideal, counterattacking player. But the Canadiens this year, the way they are, could only really, do so many things. And when we see Anderson in full stride, it's hard to contain someone that size, but he has that kind of straight line, thoroughbred speed. He's not a finesse type player. He has some angles to his game, but he is A to B. He's not A to B kind of thing here. And those of you who are listening on the podcast, I did a wiggle motion with my hand because that's what we do on this show. Podcasting is a visual medium. And I think he did work on trying to add more roundness to his game. He's still not a great playmaker, which, okay, when you've got Nick Suzuki and you've got Kirby Doc and you've got guys like Jesse Alonen and such coming up, maybe you don't need as much emphasis on a playmaker of Anderson to be your finisher, but you would like to see a little bit more from that. He gets power play time. He gets top 6 minutes there. Adding that little wrinkle, I think, is what's going to truly, especially like you said, when he slows down a little bit. He's not going to be able to play full speed ahead forever, especially not coming off a high ankle sprain plus shoulder injuries and God knows what else for a guy like him. He's got to add that wrinkle to his game here. I still think overall a really solid season for him that got cut short, of course, due to injury.
Speaking of seasons cut short to injury, we do kind of have to talk about another one. Fan favorite player. We're offering to do this, not offering. We are giving this review like one of the prime spots in the series because he's such a fan favorite and because we love him. We know you love him. We're going to talk about Arber Xhekaj in just one moment. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. How often do you find out an artist you love is going to be in town and you fear you've missed the boat on buying tickets, resulting in a mad scramble to get your hands on some tickets? This happened to me recently with more than one stand-up comic. Getting tickets should not be as stressful as it is for me. Game Time has flash deals. It's very easy to use, and it is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Forget stalking your favorite artists on social media. Forget being crazy like me. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. You can get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. 110% of the difference. So you can snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. You know what else is guaranteed?
Taxes.
Arber Xhekaj.
Oh,
I was gonna say. I was like, okay, I'm gonna start again. Do you know what else is guaranteed? That Arber Xhekaj will make Leafs fans and Sens fans fail their diapers. This is what, like, it's literally like there's so many reasons to love this guy, right? Like, you love his story. Undrafted, working at Costco, we've all heard it, and now he's in the NHL, the first, essentially the first chance the Canadiens got, and then he just stuck. A player that many, including myself, thought might be too violent to have an NHL presence, actually has a lot of skill. But I think one of my favorite things about him, and I can't, I have to admit, it's the effect that he has on opposing team fans and opposing team players. He is so effective on the ice. He is so good at getting in people's faces. He is so good at throwing people off their game. And this is just the beginning. It's been very unfortunate to see the injuries, and I really hope that it's one of those things that doesn't affect him like throughout his career. We do know he's a physical player. He does the fights. He knocks people out. You don't want to get into a tussle with him. All of that. I get that. I grant you that. I want to see more of this guy because he's a good defenseman and he's so annoying to the opponent.
Arber Xhekaj is up there with Samuel Montembeault for like the biggest surprises on the Canadiens this year, because he is someone that I thought for sure was going to spend time with the Rocket this year. He was the least polished of the young defensemen coming into the system. Caden Gooley had more polish. Jordan Harris had polish and professional games. They added Kovacevic, who had more professional experience, mostly in the AHL still. And somehow Xhekaj just stuck, and he kept sticking. And I thought, okay, maybe he'll go down, maybe he'll come up. He missed the first game. He was a healthy scratch for that game. They sent him to Laval. He played the game against Toronto. They had sent him down, cap space thing, whatever. And then he just stayed here until, of course, he punched a dude so hard that he dislocated his shoulder, like popped his shoulder right out. He's a unique player. He skates well with the puck. He likes to carry the puck. He likes to shoot the puck. He also likes to beat people up like it's his job. And like you said, he drives people nuts because he rides that real thin line between absolute pest and dirty player. And the biggest thing with Arber Xhekaj is that I noticed it at the rookie tournament and he got better at this, but you do not have to accept every invitation for a fight. It is great that you are quite possibly one of the scariest dudes in the league. Like, yeah, Ryan Reeves is out there, but Arber Xhekaj, after beating up Zach Kassian, he kind of put a target on himself in that, okay, I am, one of these guys now. And everyone wanted to piece him after that. You don't got to go with everybody. And you also got to keep those emotions in check. We saw that game against the Wild where Montreal was losing late and there was a hit on Slafkovsky and Xhekaj just lost his mind afterwards. I am all for coming to the defense of your teammates. Gotta get the timing right on things. There's a time and a place. And I know everyone wants to see people step up for their teammates, but if you put your team out of a winning situation because you took a penalty, you're not helping your team. I'm very, very interested to see what the next level is for this, because at 22 years old, he's grown astronomically from his OHL seasons. What can he do to keep that spot next year? Because we know there's still other young, talented players coming in. Jaden Struble is a pro now. Nicolas Baudin is likely coming back from the Rocket. He has professional experience too. There's names coming up. We're not far off from like Adam Engstrom and potentially Lane Hudson joining the team. Logan Mailloux will be with the Rocket next year. The competition's going to get fierce, and he's got to keep that development there. Everyone does, mind you, and I will say this about all of the young defensemen. But he can't lose what makes him special, but he needs to polish that a little bit more. And if he does, if he kind of learns to stay out of the box as much as he can, he's going to be a real big threat for the Canadiens here in the next couple of years.
And I'm very excited. Like, these are two very, very, very large adult boys or large adult sons that we talked about on today's episode. So, Scott, let me just leave you with one question. Do you see them both coming back this next season? And do you see them staying for the whole year?
In terms of injuries, I hope so. Arber Xhekaj is definitely...
Trades. We're assuming they stay healthy. I
don't think they're trading Arber Xhekaj. I think that'd be the worst thing they could do, because he seems like the kind of guy like, oh, you traded me. Well, I'm going to make your life a nightmare. I've watched Arber Xhekaj play other teams. I wouldn't want to play against that, legally or illegally, to be quite honest. Anderson's a unique one because I do think he's coming back, and I don't think he's going anywhere until he gets another year off that contract. And I think he actually likes being here. He wears that A proudly, and I think he has a lot to prove. He's one of those guys from that cup run who feels like they have work left to do. And I think that's a pretty admirable thing to be a part of, is that he wants to be here and stick it out through the hard times, just like Jake Allen did and other players. I think Anderson is going to be here next year.
And there you have it. Those are, oh wait, we didn't even give them grades. I want to get, okay, so let's just remove injuries from the equation because injuries are not their fault. I'm going to give Josh Anderson a B minus. And I'm going to give Arber Xhekaj, I have to give him an A because I'm not expecting him to be Victor Hedman. I'm expecting him to be Arber Xhekaj. And he did a great job at that.
I think Anderson being a B minus fits.
Maybe like you said, maybe Arber Xhekaj needs a little bit of polish. So I'm going to give him an A minus, and he can get an A at some point.
I can give him a B plus for sure on the season with this too, because he scored more goals than I expected. It's just he has the offensive upside. I want to see more of that. Don't get me wrong. I love watching Arber Xhekaj beat dudes up. Every now and then I'm like, I'm just going to watch clips of him ragdolling Zach Kassian. But you have that offensive upside. You have a hard shot. You can skate in. You can make things happen in the offensive zone. I want to see more of that. I want to see the dude who can beat people up, but I want to see the dude who puts a 102-mile slap shot in the net. And I think he can do that.
I absolutely adore it. I can't wait to see him back next season. I can't wait to see both of them back next season. I already missed them. This was a miserable season, but I already missed some of these Habs. And those of you who are still listening at this point, we forgot to say this at the top of the show, but we do have a very special surprise coming up for our mailbag episode this week. It is going to be focused on prospects, whether it's about Habs prospects or prospects in the upcoming draft. Please send us your mailbag questions. You can send them to us at LO_Canadiens on Twitter. You can send them to lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. You can leave them in the YouTube comments. Just make sure you put prospect mailbag at the beginning of your comment so we add it to the prospect mailbag. It's your surprise. Please get them in as soon as possible, but we'll be accepting questions right up until Thursday evening Eastern time. Thursday early evening Eastern time, which is when we're going to be recording with our special guest. As for the rest of you, I didn't mean it that way. As for where to find us, as for the rest of the social media, you can find Scott on Twitter at Scott Matla. You will find me at The Active Stick. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to listen to us tomorrow.